Chapter 1. The Whispering Pages. Kai had never paid much attention to the old building at the edge of Eldridge. It was one of those places that people walked past every day without giving it a second thought. A nondescript, crumbling structure tucked behind a thicket of trees like a forgotten relic from another time. Most people probably didn't even know it was there. So why, on this particular afternoon, had it drawn him in? He wasn't sure. Maybe it was the way the sunlight flickered through the leaves, casting strange shadows on the ground. Or maybe it was just the restlessness he'd been feeling lately, a nagging sense that there was more to life than the routine he'd been trapped in for years. The same streets, the same faces, the same unchanging sky, the same boring world. Kai hesitated before pushing open the creaky door. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the unmistakable smell of old paper. The walls were lined with shelves that stretched impossibly high, crammed with books of every size and color. It was nothing like the public library back in town. This place felt ancient, as if it had been here long before Eldridge had even existed. He stepped further in, the floorboards creaking under his feet. The only sound was the rustle of pages turning somewhere in the distance. As his eyes adjusted to the dim light, he saw an old man hunched over a table in the far corner, completely absorbed in a large, worn book. He wore thick glasses, and his long white hair and beard made him look more like a wizard than a librarian. Kai paused, unsure whether he should interrupt or leave. But before he could decide, the old man spoke without looking up. "You found it." Kai blinked, unsure if he'd heard correctly. "What?" "The library," the old man repeated, still not glancing up from his book. His voice was calm but carried a strange weight, as though he were speaking to someone who already knew exactly what he was talking about. Kai stepped closer. His curiosity piqued. "I don't understand." The librarian finally looked up, his eyes sharp and knowing despite the wrinkles etched into his face. "The library that moves between worlds. The one that contains more than just stories. It's time for you to see it." Kai's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean? Moves between worlds?" The old man closed the book with a soft thud, and for the first time Kai noticed how the pages seemed to shimmer with a faint light. The librarian stood slowly and began walking toward a narrow corridor in the back of the room. "Come with me." Kai hesitated. The librarian's tone wasn't commanding, but there was an urgency in his eyes. Without thinking, Kai followed. They passed row after row of shelves. Some books seemed familiar, titles Kai recognized from the school library, but there were others, strange, unreadable titles that made his stomach churn just looking at them. The further they went into the depths of the library, the more the air seemed to hum, charged with an energy Kai couldn't explain. The walls seemed to stretch and shift around him, as if the library itself was alive. At the end of the corridor, the librarian stopped in front of a tall, ornate door that looked out of place compared to the rest of the library's worn-down appearance. It was intricately carved, its wood polished to a smooth, gleaming finish. The librarian turned to Kai, his expression serious. "This is the heart of the library," he said quietly. "What lies beyond this door is not just knowledge. It is a door to everything the world has forgotten and everything it still has yet to discover. Are you ready?" Kai's throat was dry. He had no idea what the librarian was talking about, but there was no mistaking the gravity in his words. This was no ordinary place. There was something more here, something Kai couldn't quite grasp, but it called to him all the same. "I'm ready," Kai said, his voice steady, though he wasn't entirely sure why he said it. Maybe it was the quiet excitement that had been building in him ever since he walked into the library. Or maybe it was the feeling that this was the answer to the emptiness he'd been feeling for so long. The librarian nodded, a slight smile tugging at the corner of his lips. He placed a hand on the door and it swung open with a creak, revealing a room that seemed to stretch beyond the confines of the library itself. There were no walls, no ceiling, only a vast, endless expanse of books floating in midair, suspended by some unseen force. "Go on," the librarian said, gesturing toward the floating books. "Step inside." "You'll understand soon enough," Kai hesitated, then took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Want to read more?" Get your copy today on Amazon. Search for books by Krishna Prasanth Gudikonda